stole it from
We ceased today.
You ready? I'd like to call this CRA board meeting this October the 6th, 2022 to order. With that, could we all please stand together for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, you please call the roll.
Sheriff Blackwell,
Here.
Member Martini,
Here.
Member Askew,
Here.
Member Trace,
Here.
Vice Chair Davis,
Here.
Member Loden,
Here.
Member Irvin.
Here.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask our city manager if we have an update to this agenda.
Yes, I'd like to remove new business item A from the agenda.
Item number A, the St. Cloud Hotel Agreement update is being removed from the agenda.
Yes, please.
Is that it?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. The first item, or the next item on our agenda is the approval of our minutes for the August the 4th, 2022. Do we have any corrections?
Motion approved. Second.
We have a motion from Member Trace and a second from Member who?
Loading.
Member Lodi. Madam Clerk, please call the roll. Or can I just say,
You don't have to do roll call.
thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody against, say no. And it carries. This brings us to new business. The first item is item number B, Massachusetts Avenue and 10th Street Surface Parking Lot Project. And we'll recognize Ms. Forbes.
Good evening, Antoinette Forbes, Economic Development Manager. If you recall, at the August 4th meeting, the board had asked or had spoke about doing a initial design for the surface parking lot behind the St. Cloud Hotel, and the former city manager had stated that he was going to bring that back before City Council in order to get funding approved. Since that time, staff has in fact gotten a quote for what those services would in fact cost. This quote was provided through the Public Works Department. Unfortunately, we do not have a representative there as they are deep in post-hurricane recovery, so I will make an attempt to explain. So this quote is based on, just the design services, which includes the surveying and geotech design. It includes design and permitting, construction admin, as well as project management, to a total of $108,085.80 with an anticipated start date of November the 1st. Was that my only one? Yes, that was my only one. So the purpose of this at this time is to, number one, inform the board of what the initial cost is just to do the design. And the second purpose is to now allocate the funding. So if you recall, we had allocated the FY 21-22 fund balance towards parking. A portion of it, I think, was a little bit less than $800,000 or so. And then we came back with an amendment which slightly changed those amounts in order to give more to the VFW. Well, during that amendment, we also changed the verbiage that said parking to parking garage. And so we just want to make clear that the $108,000 will go towards parking and not necessarily to either one specific project.
Okay. Councilmember Matheny?
Thank you. I'm some of these firms I'm not familiar with. So Coyle and Karen is who? An engineer? I've never heard of Coyle and Karen.
They're a landscape architecture firm.
And Drummond Carpenter is the engineer?
Coyle and Karen says it's Johnston Surveying. Actually, I'll let Antoinette go as I'm continuing to scroll through this.
Sure. So I see that, sorry, give me 1 second. Drum Carpenter is the engineering firm. And bear with me here.
Johnston's is the survey, GEC is the geotech, SGM, I don't know who that is.
Me either.
You said project management, so are we paying someone to project manage?
That was included as part of their quote.
So we're talking about the lot behind the hotel? That's what we're talking about? This is very expensive. Very expensive. And I know you can't competitively bid professional services, but I would request that we go back and have another conversation, maybe look at the scope. I mean, that's very expensive for a parking lot. Just my opinion.
Member Davis?
Can I just throw out a couple ideas here before we get too far down this road? Number one, I agree, it is super expensive, and then we have construction on top of this. But this would be great, and we've been looking at doing this parking lot for a long time. We've got a ton of merchants in downtown that are within a fraction of going out of business. I don't see the benefit to the downtown. We're going to end up with the construction done. We have this beautiful downtown. Everything looks great, but we've got a bunch of empty buildings. And you're probably going to have a bunch of empty buildings sitting in the middle of a huge recession that's like here. I would kind of like us to look, instead of spending this money on this at this point, even though I know we want to do this, we've talked about it forever, is possibly allocating this and maybe even a little more to, and I know the city has worked very hard with the merchants trying to do stuff for them, but maybe utilizing this money additionally to try to keep them in business. The cloud cache is a great idea, but only a little bit of that benefits them. A, it's going to take a while for that to filter back into the businesses. B, they're going to have product costs for a large portion of whatever's spent with them on the cloud cache. So, I mean, it's nice, but not all of that, not even remotely. Probably 25% of it is going to flow to their bottom line to pay their bills. And I've had several of them call me over the last few weeks, a couple of them in tears, that they're just, I mean, they're within a fraction of going out of business. And so I've been sitting here thinking, no, why are we doing like this right this minute, even though I know we've all pushed for it, including me, we all want this to be done, but I'm just not sure now is the best time. And this, none of this is a criticism at the contractor. I think the contractor, and I may not have a lot of agreement, I think the contractor's done a great job this time. I don't have any faults. I watch them all the time. I think they've done good. They're just dealing with what they're dealing with down here with all the unknown and hidden things that they run into. And so I'm just throwing that out there for a thought on this. And especially, this is just, it feels like way too much money for this. And in a project that the city's going to do, I'm not even, I mean, just, there's all kinds of reasons I think that's too much.
Member Matheny?
So another idea, I'm sorry to rain on the parade, but I know you guys have worked really hard on this, but just when I saw that number, I was like, whoa, that's a lot. I believe the city of St. Cloud adopted, I can't see Mr. Tomac, but he might know this, but did the city of St. Cloud adopt the CM at risk contracts from the county? I believe I heard that. Does anybody know? Well, I thought that's anyways, there are construction manager at risk contracts. I thought the city adopted. I thought somebody had told me that. Like,
I don't think we've formally adopted them in
But you're
general.
utilizing them.
We could utilize them if needed.
but you could do a project like this and hand it to the contractor and have them get the engineering and stuff done because it's faster too, versus going and doing the engineering and then you go find a contractor and they don't like what they did and they don't like the borings or where the borings were taken or they don't like the landscape. You could say, you kind of get into all that, but if you go through the construction manager at risk, you can get the contractor and they hire the engineer, and so like they have all this coordination and it expedites things. But if to Mr. Davis's point, the businesses are struggling, is there a solution that goes to the city's streets and drainage department and they do something in the interim to get it where we could get parking, now? Is that a possibility?
So there was a couple, I'm sorry, is that question for me? I'm so sorry.
Whoever.
Okay, so it's a couple different things that were discussed in reference to how we obtained the quote from this vendor. That's a public works question. I'm not quite sure about it, but I'm certain that we as staff can go back and evaluate if we have either a continued services contract that we can use or that we have an already approved vendor that we can use that possibly give a better comparative pricing.
You can't do that. You can't competitively
No,
bid.
we can't, yeah,
That's right.
that's the
Professional.
restriction.
You
But
can't.
we can certainly go back
But
and
go
look at it.
and go and look at the scope and see if there's some extra. I mean, you know, if you're saying Quill and Carson is 31 grand for landscaping plans for a parking lot, I mean that seems it's very expensive to me, and I do these scopes all the time. But is there a solution that like city staff could do in an interim kind of quick turnaround to get it where there's parking, but we do this kind of longer term, but help people out now? I mean, does the city have resources, skill sets to do that?
So we do have engineers on staff, but currently they're acting as project managers on other projects because we haven't filled our project manager position. We could prioritize them working on a parking lot. I think Mr. Sturgeon, when he was here, had looked at some other options regarding pervious pavers or just parking on the grass. And I think we didn't go that route because the board didn't want us to go that route.
That violates the city's code.
To be parking on the grass, right?
Right.
So I'm just going to throw it out to the board for conversation, but is that something we could talk about in a short-term solution? Like, yes, we understand parking on grass violates city code, but in the interim, we need to get parking down here. We've got struggling businesses. Let's do a variance for, you know, a year to allow like for that, but then we have to like get it into like permanent.
But when would it even be available? Because we've got city vehicles and stuff parking on it during construction anyway, right?
They are currently, they are parking there. There are also some of the public parks there right now also, but we have moved the city vehicles over there.
Right, so even if you said, forgetting the price discrepancy, if you said start this today, you couldn't because you don't have any place to move those vehicles to. Again, you've already moved them there out of the way of the construction.
Can they not move to the lot across from the fire station? Because that's what I had talked to Mr. Sturgeon about. Like when I worked at Publix in high school, I didn't get the premium spots.
Yeah.
I had to park, you know, away from everything.
Right.
So could we, you know, utilize that grass parking to move the city vehicles there? I mean,
It's got equipment staging on it
That's right.
for the downtown.
They've got a laydown yard there.
Which will be done, when is that done?
right, it's supposed to be end of the year, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I think
So-
in November.
So
we
at
should
the
be
end of the
done.
year, you
But-
could,
You wouldn't even have the survey and the geo done on this by the end of the year, right, to even start design and everything, so like the,
Right, but they're
That
not
parking
done
will be
the end
back.
of the year.
what's that?
They're not done the end of the year, right? Because that's just temporary. They got to come back in and deal with tearing stuff up and putting the bollards and stuff back.
You're correct. There are certain tasks that they were going to have to come back and finish, but we were trying to open the street and not wait for those things. There is also, Antoinette, can you tell them about the shuttle service that you've signed a contract on?
Yes, so we are looking at doing a shuttle service that loops around the downtown. It'll also have 4 stops, 3 of them being parking lots. So it'll be the lakefront, the church parking lot that's owned by the First United Methodist Church, as well as the Shuffleboard Park. Those will be the 3 parking spots. And then it will drop off right in front of the Chamber of Commerce building. So we've already issued that PO. We're just doing some final negotiations as far as the contract. It is scheduled to be weekdays, Monday through Friday, 1 to 6 p.m., as well as all special city event times as well, for an hour before and an hour after those events.
But how does that help the merchants? Because if they're a restaurant, 1 to whatever doesn't help them on a lunch crowd whatsoever. And it's going to take a while for the public to get used to using anything like that, and it'll be almost unused for some period of time. Even if it was a flaming success, there's going to be a time period for it to build up, and people get used to it and understand it's there and start using it. By the time that happens, the construction will be wound down. Go ahead.
You make an excellent point. And so what the city manager and I talked about is that having city staff park at those extended lots and being shuttled back so that we open up spots available for people coming downtown.
Okay.
But if it starts at 1 PM, how do they get here
Yeah.
in the morning?
Right, that's right.
Well, we had actually talked about extending the hours to 12 o'clock. Originally, it was 1 to 6, but we had talked about extending it to 12 o'clock, and I think we have so many hours, and I think you had said that we had some flexibility.
We absolutely have flexibility to alter that timing. As long as the overall bill doesn't go over a certain amount, we have flexibility to change that.
So you're gonna have your employees go every one of them, or most of them, a lot of them, have to move their vehicle at lunchtime to get it out of the downtown and then ride the shuttle back in at noon?
No, they'd have to park there in the morning and walk. But we're also going to be getting our lot back.
I'm sorry?
We're also going to be getting our lot back where where employees normally park, or the city vehicles are normally parked. So that,
Why?
because it's currently being used for staging also. So there's staging in multiple areas right now. There's staging in front of the fire station, there's staging here at City Hall where we normally park. So
When is this project gonna be completed?
the City Hall building, I believe, is February, if I remember correctly. Fingers crossed.
I don't see any of that working out. You're gonna ask the employees to park somewhere, walk here from wherever.
So
That's wishful thinking.
I agree with Mr. Davis, but I guess my thought is, at the county, you know, you see they allow people to park their county vehicles around town, right? You see them at the library, you see them like they're staged around, so they're not all at the county building. So right now, in my mind, does every city vehicle move every day? Because I have a county vehicle, I don't drive it every day. Like, are there people that have city vehicles that don't drive it every day? It's considered, you know, those could get moved remotely, right? And then could you, right now, in my mind, I'm thinking you have somebody in the building department, they have their vehicle, and then they have their city vehicle. So park the city vehicles, work with the county and say, hey, can we park them at the library until the construction is done? At least in the morning, they pick their vehicle up and then they come here, so it's half of the vehicles that they normally have. And then at the end of the day, the city vehicles are off-site. And I mean, I think it's doable to like just find solutions. I feel like everybody's just shooting down solutions, but it's like, you know, ask the county, could you park city vehicles at the library? There's tons of parking, like.
So we have actually, the building department, the inspectors are taking their city vehicles home at this time. I talked to Antoinette about talking to the church, about asking for the vehicles that have to be parked here, if we could park in the very back of their parking lot to switch, but she's had multiple tasks that we were trying to accomplish before the end of the budget year. So that's on her task list, to go to the church and ask if we, because they didn't want us leaving cars overnight, so to ask if we could just put those in the back row, and hoping that it wouldn't affect their plans.
And I would think, I would think weekends would be problematic too, because of the services on Sunday.
But the library would be okay.
The library would be, sure.
So they're great. They're great ideas.
Yeah.
I mean, we're working on lots of ideas over the past month. We've been working on grants. We've been working on the shuttle service. We've been working on, you know, getting employees to take vehicles home. Also talked to Public Works. They want to take their vehicles home, but you get charged tax for taking your vehicle home. So that's why they ended up parking across the street, because they didn't want to have that additional tax.
That's income.
It's
yeah.
a taxable
Taxable income.
consequence.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
So
the mileage from where they would park to their house is statutorily charged.
So I'll just say one last thing. So what the county does is like they let people stage their vehicles. I mean, the county's a lot bigger, right? So you have people that live on the east side of the county and then they drop their vehicles at a fire station and then pick it up and come. I mean, I just think there maybe is a way to like,
But aren't those a lot of employees that don't or seldom have to go into the office? Like most of the building inspectors now probably seldom go into the office because they're doing everything on that laptop.
sure, but then they're
So-
parking their vehicle here.
I'm sorry?
But then they come in, maybe if they don't come into this building, but they come and park their vehicle here and then get into their city vehicle,
Right.
so, you know.
the building
those-
inspectors are currently taking their vehicles home per the building official. So it's just the Public Works inspector. So you're right, they're just swapping a car out. Well, I mean, we're going to keep working on the parking situation. We haven't stopped. Please don't think that we have. We just prioritize working on the cloud cache, the shuttle service, and the utility grants. We felt that those were more of a priority to get cash moving into the downtown. So we haven't stopped. We're going to keep working on another solution. This was one that we were asked to do, so we brought it back to you. If the council doesn't want us to move forward with the parking lot, we'll keep working on another solution right now.
But is there any support for delaying this and using this money to the merchants? Because, no question, and I've been talking to Veronica, the city's doing everything they can as fast as they can for the merchants. I don't have any doubt about that. But these people are surviving literally day to day. I mean, you know, they're just, on any given day, if they stub their toe, they're just not gonna open tomorrow morning. And it's just a crisis for them, and I hate to have us, we've got some decent merchants downtown now, and it's gonna be a shame if they're not there when all this beautification gets done, and we've gotta start over and ramp back up and try to start bringing people into downtown, and that whole growth curve back into trying to fill in these potentially vacant spaces.
Mr. Manzares?
Yeah, and obviously, this board does not have to take action on the item that's in front of them. I will caution you now about trying to redirect use of this money for the purposes that Mr. Davis is talking about. We'd have to look further into whether that would be an appropriate use of CRA funds, essentially as in this case. So I don't think you should conclusively make that decision today without giving us an opportunity to review that issue.
Well, I don't think $108,000, even if we could, is going to save the downtown. With all the challenges, the streets cut off and lack of parking, two construction projects going on. But people are not going to come downtown if it's not convenient to park,
That's right.
regardless. They're not going to ride shuttles.
That's right.
You might ride a shuttle to a sporting event, but that's just like a one-time event. To come and shop and wait on a shuttle. I could see certainly our employees back and forth.
Or the special
How many
events.
that?
I like the special events idea. I mean, that's, especially when we have a parade or something and everything's blocked off anyway, and there's no parking, having to shuttle back and forth from the lakefront or wherever we have to park, but.
Right.
I do think that the $108,000 is just a bit much, then in addition, the construction cost to do it, and then the street will be done by the time this even gets thought of being designed, let alone complete, so maybe just pause for now in my mind.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
So we're not having any course of action at this point?
It appears there's consensus, so we will put this project on hold.
Any brilliant parking solutions you can give us, we'll certainly love to listen to those.
We'll continue working.
Okay.
We have a list of tasks that we're working on to help alleviate the situation.
All right, are we done? Let's move on to our staff report and update on the new grant programs.
So this next item is to give the CRA board just an update on some of the grant programs that it had recently approved, and by recently, I mean within the past 2 years or so. The programs that have been put in place were both in response to COVID recovery, but also just into helping our downtown grow. So one of those programs was our BTR grant program, which was a reimbursable grant up to $100 that reimburses for the business tax receipt for both the city and county fees. To date, we have awarded 8 companies, $736 total. These are just a picture of some of the companies that we've given those awards to, which are also our monthly market merchants. The other program was the Plant, Paint, Pave grant program, which was originally brought to us through the consultant RMA. To date, we have done 2 of those grants, which is a total of $4,000. You can see the big difference in the before and after for one of the projects that was done, which was very minimal in terms of cost, but showed a really big impact. And then the third grant program that was approved was the special event grant program. And the reason I brought this to your attention is to let you know the status and that we only recently received this legal opinion by the former Attorney General that stated that grants to entities that promote tourism and economic development, as well as to nonprofits providing socially beneficial programs, would appear outside the scope of the Community Redevelopment Act. I included a copy of the entire opinion in the agenda packet, but to let you know that we had closed this program. We had not received any applications, so no funds were actually given out. But again, I wanted to just inform the board for your information that we were closing that program. So those are the three I want to update you on. We still have our BSIG, the Building Site Improvement Grant, ongoing. We are actively seeking applications for that as well. Any questions?
Thank you, Antoinette. This time we have our bi-monthly financials.
Good evening to the committee. Wendy Colazzo, Finance Director. Before you is your fiscal year 21-22 financial statements unaudited for the final quarter of fiscal year 21-22. Budgeted for the CRA is $2,878,515. Actuals through October and September. This also negates having any revenue sources posted as we close down. That hasn't been a hard close just yet, so we still have about a month of transactions to post on the revenue stream side. The county payment of $1,111,415 is complete and done as a revenue source, with a totality of $1,295,346 as the date of this report booked into revenue. One of your deficiencies, as you can see, is operating interest. As you know, the economic situation right now with investments and banking right now, this is one portion that you'll see throughout the city of unrealized losses at this time. I focus on unrealized. We're hoping for the best to not have to realize those losses before we close this quarter. In expenditures, an equal budget for within the categories you see there: personnel, operating, capital outlay, grants and aids, and of course other uses, in a totality of $2,878,515, giving you a net zero budget balance. Expended through September, $1,472,052. At this point, and at the point of this report, we were 98.7% of budget. Expense ratio at this time, we had 2% expended in personnel, and then a burn rate of 44% in operating, and 14% between grants and capital aid. Overall, is spend at about 77% burn comparative to revenue. So obviously we're spending less than we're bringing in. Expected unaudited fund balance that we'll talk about in the future meeting to allocate as you normally will do. We are unaudited at about, projected right now, about $1 million of going towards restricted and/or reserves of unspended. That is your financials for this bi-monthly period and the fourth quarter, again, pending to close as we are in the nearing the 13th period. Any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Any questions? Member Trace?
I just don't remember what the 718,534 was for.
718,000.
It was intergovernmental transfers and capital.
This is the parking portion of the CRA that they're paying towards. We restricted it over.
Okay, so that's
Yeah.
for the project of
The
parking
project,
garage.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then on the 117, or I guess it's $130,000 total of interest, operating interest.
Mm-hmm.
So that's losses on the investment. How big is the investment that we have, or how much do we?
For the CRA, it's really about the cash in, right? Overall for the city, we're talking about $129 million of liquidity, with most of it maturing in December. A portion of that is obviously a very minor as it compares to the entire city. The reason we're saying unrealized right now, if this bell curve turns, then we may have some positive gains on the cash that we have in the investment. We won't know that until I get another another month in and we finalize that, so.
Well, I just don't, I don't know how much is CRA funds that are invested. I just don't see how we have a $130,000 loss on the investments of the CRA. I thought we only had $2 or $3 million total in that
Yeah,
account.
so the CRA's portion is about actually $1 million in cash liquid.
Okay.
The amount of investments that are due right now to mature, their mature rates right now, where the interest rates are coming lower in than when what is expected with the current situation. So we are at a loss on the cash. We're not earning as much as we should as they materialize. That could change by the time we go into, I just won't know that until December.
It's just surprising to me I understand the $12,000 would go to zero. I just didn't think it would go to negative $120,000.
Unrealized, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, we end up paying it up, yeah, yes, sir.
Member Davis?
So that investment is in bonds?
It's in various, yes, it's in different diversities. It's
not
in
in-
bonds, it's in the SBA, the majority of it.
Not in equities.
No,
So, but you're saying a lot of that has maturities in December.
yes.
If we let it go through maturity and you're not selling it, you're not discounting it to get rid of it, you're getting back the full principal.
We should get the full principal back. It just depends on, in December, what we are going to sell, just because we have a couple other things going on as far as the money that's separate for EU and those items. And then if we're going to sell, or what our PFM reviews and tells us what to sell or keep. So that's why I say unrealized, just because I want to project as it sits now, that's not necessarily what's going to happen.
And so as interest rates continue to climb, and my belief is you're not even remotely close to where they're going,
Right.
this loss is going to accelerate. The unrealized loss is going to accelerate.
It already has, sir, and I try to keep sleep because of it. Yes, sir.
I understand. But again, if we're not selling them, you're not losing capital. You're just not earning the interest you projected on them.
Correct, which affects our budget. Thankfully, we keep it conservative, right? So as you see, what we originally budgeted wasn't an exuberant amount that's going to affect us in an exorbitant amount of way. But the other factor is, because the way it's done in the city, pooled cash comes in, right? There's a portion this year we're actually going to go liquid and expend with the transition of EU. I have to move money, right? So we lose our capacity as well. So that it's an unprecedented year because of that. Any other year, I'd be like, just reporting it, we'll keep it moving. But this year, we're actually physically going to move, and you'll see it in council. Will see it forward in further meetings when we actually make the tranche of cash and actually go liquid and remove that capacity, because it's all in together, and we separate it out by proportionate share. So
Is the city required to put that are they required to not keep it in cash? I mean, you're still going to essentially have a loss because of inflation, but not to this extent.
I'm bounded by the investment policy, which doesn't allow us just to kind of go back and forth on what. We have to keep a certain amount, and we also have to keep conservative, because it is, we follow the policy of investment.
But-
That's standard practice.
But cash would be the most conservative in this environment.
Depends on who you ask.
Yeah, well,
I don't
having been
fully-
around for 50 years and gotten my butt handed to me a few times in these type situations, I can tell you where this is headed, almost guaranteed. Is the city, what's the maturities are you required to purchase certain maturities, within certain maturities?
Yes, we are required. We are also advised by PFM. We brought that on when the portfolio got a little bit bigger. We wanted to be better diversified in shorter to mid-terms versus long terms, just because of where this was going. I have not roamed the earth that long, you know what I mean? But I have done my history.
Unfortunately, I do.
I have done my history a little bit, and in the 80s, we hit 14%. That's the top of the top. Can I predict the future? No, but we're sound with policy that this has worked to help us navigate through hopefully what this is going to be a valley, not this gully, and not a full recession. But we've had 2 quarters of GP that has gone down, so we're in a mini recession, in case anybody had any doubt. Normally, we just don't want to shift that amount and just quickly act, because the market takes time there's a bell curve. Right now, we're trying to pull it up and see how we're going to navigate it out, and we're monitoring that on a daily basis. So, because overall, if it were to happen, like I said, there's just some losses we need to book, and we don't want to book them. So,
Right, because there was a time when I was closing first mortgages at 18, 19, and 20% first mortgages. We're in a hyperinflationary environment again, although it's not totally being realized. We get into a situation like that, these investments will go, maybe not to zero, but they will head that direction.
Yes, sir, and hopefully I can do justice and I don't have to shred my degree or anything, and maybe I can navigate this thing to hopefully not get to zero,
Yeah.
keep cash liquid, and keep us organic enough to make it through the storm. I think we're well prepared.
Okay.
I don't know everything and don't have a crystal ball, but we are doing our due diligence to monitor this thing up.
Okay.
We need
Right.
people to stop spending spendable income here so they could stop printing money and keep increasing the rate.
Do we have any
Seems simple
questions
enough,
regarding
doesn't it?
this report? Thank you very much. This time we have member update. Member Davis, do you have anything?
I do not, Your Honor.
Member Loading?
I do not either.
Member Trace?
Potentially last CRA meeting, right? Is this the last one on the schedule?
This is it?
For November?
Yeah.
Cool.
This is your last meeting?
Yeah, these two right here.
Man, we should have had cake.
It's in the back.
Yeah, I've got cupcakes.
That's right, we had those cupcakes, yeah.
Member Askew?
I don't have anything.
Member Urban?
Nothing for me, sir.
Member Matheny?
Nothing for me.
Madam Manager, do you have anything?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Manzares?
No, sir, thank you.
And I do not have anything. Our next CR meeting is scheduled for Thursday, December the 1st, 2022. Mr. Trace, you will be missed. And I don't know whether to say congratulations or you sorry dog.
We're not gonna miss Dave, though.
Although I would like to say welcome to the new city manager and congratulations, since this is your
Yes.
first official meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah, she's been tested by fire the last couple of weeks. Water.
That's right, nothing like stepping right into it.
Water.
That's about water.
Yeah, water.
Since there are no other items on our agenda, we will be adjourned. Thank you.
Aye.
So when you say that